Hello everyone, you're watching Cinematic Gaming. The world of Crysis Trilogy has one of the most interesting alien races in video games, and I found it worth making a video about the story of this race, which has a large background that described it in log files and story messages to be found during the game. But most players didn't bother themselves searching and collecting those files and messages, so that's why I want to fill this gap in this video. Here are all story messages I found during the recent walkthrough, and here in the messages section we have the most interesting of them, called Ceph Research Reports, and I have unlocked all of them. These texts here give us a much more detailed explanation than it was in Crysis 1 and 2. They describe the Ceph civilization in detail and depict the story of their presence on Earth. I'm just gonna read these messages, and I'm afraid there'll be not so much illustration, because we don't have any depictions of Ceph homeworld and their different forms on other planets. So use your imagination and let's get started. Here are 7 of these messages, and we're gonna start with the first message called Ceph Species Overview. Members of the Cell Board, please find below the first part of my research extract on the Ceph species and colonization cycle. My team and I are very confident that the data presented is accurate, as remarkable as it may seem. Regards, Dr. G. Kean. The Ceph, an overview. The Ceph are an incredibly ancient alien race, now known to have developed an extremely successful method of interplanetary colonization, which has seen them spread not only throughout their home galaxy, but to make significant incursions into neighboring galaxies too, including our own. Though they share many physical similarities with the cephalopodic species on Earth, the Ceph are actually a hive species like ants, and share a single collective intelligence rather than an individual human intelligence like our own. Their intelligence is vast, but they are so utterly different in terms of how that intelligence functions and how it manifests itself that the Ceph genius can be difficult for a human being to even comprehend. Though it may seem counterintuitive to us, the Ceph have become so very successful by being a reactive species. While human civilization is built upon knowledge being steadily passed on from generation to generation, each new Ceph hive begins with relatively little inherited knowledge from its parent hive, but instead has a deadly ability to adapt and react fast. It is this ability that makes the Ceph able to succeed and thrive in a billion unimaginably different environments, from Earth-like planets to high-gravity gas giants and ice spheres, or the unimaginably hot, the unimaginably toxic, and the unimaginably strange regions of dark matter and warped space-time, where our rigid human thinking would at best be useless, or at worst send us mad in seconds. The human brain may have evolved to dominate one specific planet, but the Ceph hive mind is engineered to dominate an entire universe. Message 2. Ceph overhives and seeding ships. Members of the Cell Board, find below the second part of my research extract on the Ceph species. Regards, Dr. G. Kean. The overhives of M33. Much of the southern spiral arm of the M33 galaxy is now known to be part of a vast billion-year-old Ceph web of countless planets, ships and colonies that make up a single gigantic hive mind. This impossibly huge Ceph hive has been given the name Overhive Hyperion by cell researchers. Two much smaller, though still immense, overhives also exist in M33 Overhive Lepetus to the west of the galactic core, and Overhive Coeus in the eastern fringes. Around 1 million additional hives covering 3 or more star systems are also known to exist in M33. Little is known about the ancient Ceph of the gigantic M33 overhives. Our researchers don't even have any clear idea of how they may look. But from what little we have been able to uncover, we are sure that they are almost unimaginably more advanced than the Ceph currently encountered on Earth. As my colleague Dr. Glossop recorded in his initial data assessment, we don't know what's out there in M33, but one thing's for sure. Compared to them, the Ceph we have now are cavemen with stone clubs, and us, we barely rank as moss. The seeding ships. Once a Ceph hive grows beyond a certain size, it starts to produce seeding ships. These vessels contain everything needed to produce a new Ceph hive from scratch. As far as we are aware, seeding ships are produced in great numbers and are launched into space randomly. We know that the seeding ship that hit Earth came from Overhive Hyperion in M33. Message 3. Ceph Colonization, Stage 1. Members of the Cell Board, find below the third part of my research extract on the Ceph species. Regards, Dr. G. Kean. Ceph Colonization, Stage 1. Each seeding ship contains a small protohive of between 50 and 150 Stage 1 Ceph and a great deal of adaptive technology. Upon finding a suitable location to begin a new hive, these early Ceph begin to engage in massive energy absorption, with ice generation as a typical byproduct, environment analysis and early asset construction activities. Collected energy is used to birth a new generation of terraforming Ceph, specifically adapted to the local environment. It is believed that the proto-hive mind of this Stage 1 Ceph is controlled artificially and is dependent on the acquisition of energy to keep it stable. For this reason, any Ceph incursion should be eradicated in Stage 1, whilst the invaders are not yet entirely self-sufficient. Ceph Stage 1 on Earth. It is estimated that a Ceph seeding ship that hit Earth arrived around 65 million years ago. It is possible that the ship and its occupants were rendered inactive by the same asteroid impact that caused a planet-wide mass extinction event during that period. This would explain the isolated pockets of Ceph activity throughout history, but lack of wholesale progression from Stage 1 to Stage 2 until the seeding ship itself was uncovered on Lingshan Island in 2020. A second seed ship, showing considerable collision damage, has been in loose solar orbit for a similar amount of time. It was first sighted in 2023, when the Earthbound Ceph were observed attempting to contact it. The ship did not respond, and further observations suggest this ship to be a derelict hulk and devoid of life. Further details on the second ship are unavailable at this time. Message number 4. Ceph Colonization, Stage 2. Members of the Cell Board, please find below the fourth part of my research on the Ceph species and colonization cycle. My team and I are very confident that the data presented is accurate, as remarkable as it may seem. Dr. G. Kean, Head of Xenostudy. Ceph Colonization, Stage 2. The huge amounts of energy collected by the first stage Ceph is used to birth a second generation of Ceph creatures, which are able to function as a single self-sufficient hive mind in their own right and no longer need to steal energy to function. The Stage 2 Ceph are highly adaptive creatures. They will instinctively configure and reconfigure activities, equipment, and even their genetic makeup to better suit local environment. On Earth, this reflective adaptation most clearly presented itself in a shift from the relatively low numbers of high-powered, resource-heavy units first encountered on Lingshan to a much more numerous, tactically flexible force composed of less powerful individuals which spearheaded the 2023 incursions. As a consequence, the Ceph eliminated the many advantages of our numerical superiority, which were a key factor in our early victories over the aliens. The purpose of the second stage Ceph is to conquer and terraform, eventually turning the planet into a Ceph hive world, which one day will be able to produce seed ships of its own. The Alpha Ceph. As part of the second stage, a unique Ceph creature rises to dominance. This creature has been named the Premor Xenus, or Alpha Ceph, by Cell researchers and given the codename System X for use in the wider world. The creature is remarkable in that it acts both the central nexus and focusing point for the Ceph hive mind, but also naturally generates near unlimited amounts of energy through an internal reaction that researchers have been so far unable to replicate. This energy flows cleanly between all the Ceph that make up the hive and powers all the second stage Ceph's equipment and exosuits. Message number 5. Ceph Stage 2 on Earth. Members of the Cell Board, please find below the fifth part of my research extract on the Ceph species and their colonization cycle. Dr. G. Kean, Head of Xenostudy. Ceph Stage 2 on Earth. From 2020 to 2023, no one knew it at the time, But the nuclear strike on Lingshan was the worst move humanity could have possibly made. The first stage Ceph had created a huge ice sphere over a portion of the island. Military tacticians believed this to be a defensive structure, and while this was true, this was only part of the sphere's true purpose. The construct was also functioned as an energy-collecting matrix, hence the ice produced by the absorption of heat from the atmosphere. Striking the sphere with a nuclear weapon actually supplied all the power the energy-hungry first stage Ceph could ever need. The power was enough for them to birth the Alpha Ceph under Lingshan. The long-delayed arrival of the second stage at last began. From 2023 to 2040, after their defeat in New York and around the world, the Ceph withdrew. In hidden bases and birthing factories under every continent, the surviving Stage 2 Ceph began to adapt yet again to better copy, outmaneuver, and defeat the tactics of their human enemies. A new second stage of Ceph creatures, this one even better suited and prepared for war on Earth, was only a few years away from being ready to take up the fight, when an unexpected disaster befell the Ceph hive. Having recently given birth to a new generation of its alien army, the weakened Alpha Ceph was identified and captured by Cell forces under New York. Message number 6. Ceph Colonization Stage 3. Members of the Cell board, please find below the sixth and final part of my research extract on the Cell species and their colonization cycle. My apologies if this final part proves to be disturbing reading. Dr. G. Kian, head of Xeno study. Ceph Colonization Stage 3. If the Stage 2 Ceph are unable to terraform due to persistent local resistance, Stage 3 is initiated. Stage 3 involves the deployment of infinitely more advanced warrior Ceph directly from the parent overhive in the M33 galaxy. As recorded previously, little is known about these aliens, but beyond some degree of shared genetic ancestry with Earth-based Ceph, they are likely to be utterly different than anything we have encountered before. The Stage 2 Ceph have been active on Earth for less than 40 years and are already a well-adapted, highly capable combat force. The warrior Ceph of M33, by contrast, have 500 million years of combat evolution behind them. These Ceph are in all probability the closest thing to gods we should ever be unlucky enough to encounter. Within hours, if not minutes or even seconds, even the most advanced enemy will be utterly crushed by the Stage 3 Ceph, and the contested planet transformed into yet another hive world, another step on the Ceph path to total universal domination. Stage 3 can be initiated through several means, but the Ceph's preferred method is the generation of the space-time wormhole, which allows a fully armed warrior Ceph battleship to be inserted directly into local orbit. If a Stage 3 Ceph warrior ship should make it through to Earth, then only a miracle could save us. Message number 7. Stage 3 Theory. Fellow members of the board, up to this point, I have read Dr. Kian's somewhat fanciful analysis of the Ceph and their supposed invasion cycle with mild amusement. It seems Dr. Kian is able to extrapolate a great deal from little more than a handful of fragmented images and ideas captured by his filtering systems. Having just experienced his most recent imaginative submission detailing a supposed Ceph Stage 3, however, I really must raise a voice of dissent. The end of the world? This seems a little far-fetched, does it not? A Red Star Rising is prudent, but we must remember that we retain the upper hand here. We know the Ceph, we have beaten them before, we have seen everything they can do, there is no cause for alarm. Yours, Dr. Hurst.
Prophet, you need to see this.
Stage 3 is the final and most deadly element of the Ceph colonization strategy. If met with significant and persistent resistance, a Ceph incursion force will seek to open an Einstein-Rosen bridge direct to the heart of its parent galaxy. From there, Ceph overhives will deploy their dedicated warrior caste to obliterate any and all obstructions.
We've only seen a fraction of what the Ceph can do. This is an extinction-level event. The Alpha Ceph will keep powering that beam until their entire invasion force is through. We have to shut it.
Claire! Claire!
The mysterious energy beam above Liberty Dome now seems to be creating some kind of spatial anomaly.
Of course, Cell Industries are in complete control of the situation. No, I have no comment on the relocation of Archangel at this time.
Are now seeing vehicles and other Earthbound objects in high orbit around the central anomaly, suggesting these items are being dragged up into space by the beam itself.
Political landscape as Senator Strickland continues to push for a full disclosure of all Cell operations.
Advising that the public remains calm as NASA works with other state-owned institutes in an attempt to uncover more about the Liberty Dome beam.
When the greatest combat machine fails, what do we do then? What do I